Hello and welcome to another workshop by ScandiPWA. Today we will talk about theme internals, and more specifically we will cover the build and configuration of a theme. So we will talk about the Webpack, what it is, what are the difference between the production build and the development, and yeah, let's begin. So first things first, let's understand what is Webpack. Well, the Webpack allows us to bundle a theme, but bundle an application. But why do we need to create a bundle out of our application? Well, this is because our images, our styles, our every asset in our application is not is not included by default. We write our imports like we do import ABC, and we do import React, but we never share the node modules folder, so we cannot get this file out of it. So without the node modules being exposed, we cannot open this file in the browser. And also, if we do imports like this, if we do import and then we do a from let's for example do if we import the style.scss, the browser doesn't understand the SCSS, so we need to transform it into the CSS. And the browser do not know what React is, we need to import React as well, so we need to include them into our scripts, include them. And also we write those arrow functions, we write those beautiful arrow functions, we use classes, and on those classes we are using the proposal properties like property equals 1. Those are not included in the browser by default, and those are just not supported in some browsers. So what we also need to do is we need to transform it into some format that other older browsers will understand. So we need to transform to newer code. Transform, and for example, if we assume that it was ES 2015, we want, if we have written in ECMAScript 6, but we want to transform it into ECMAScript 2015. Well, we can do it, it's possible, but we need some tools for it. So for each of those tools, for each of those transformations, we have different things. So the Webpack itself, it is responsible for this part, for replacing the imports and for handling the imports. This is the job for Webpack. But the job of another tool we are using, the bubble, is to transform this part. So if we have a code which is not supported in some browsers and we want to see how it can be, we want to transform it from one to a different, but still resemble the same logic, but now be written differently, we need to use bubble. So there is a tool called bubble. And the bubble is a very powerful tool to transform a JavaScript, to transpile it from one ECMAScript standard to another. And then also what we have here is we have the styles. And those styles, they must be also transformed into CSS. So for it, we need some SCSS loaders. So loader, what is this? Well, loader is, and the bubble is also a loader because it's. So what are those loaders? Well, loaders are a thing for Webpack which allows you to load a specific type of asset. For example, in CSS, we are also using the, in the background we could use flexboxes. And the flexboxes, they could have some value like flex 101, but there are browsers which do not support shorthand property of flex. So we need to fall back to, for example, moz-flex whatever. So the WebKit prefixes, you know them, they also need to be added. They are added by post-CSS. And then post-CSS is also a thing. So they are added by auto-prefixer plugin, auto-prefixer but this plugin is written for post CSS. So the post CSS and the auto prefixer, those are also loaders. So we have the post CSS loader to not write the vendor prefixes, like for browser, like Moz, like WebKit, and whatever. They are done automatically by auto prefixer. So we'll have additional post CSS loader. And also in production or in development, it might be inconvenient to import and to load CSS files like they are. For example, if we have multiple hundreds of CSS files, we don't want them to load one by one. We might want them to load all together, or we might want them to load inside of the JavaScript. So in order to do it, we also have tools, and those tools will be different loaders. So what Webpack is basically a thing which handles the JavaScript, which can handle the import, which can handle the files using loaders. So it can handle styles using a CSS loader. It can handle JavaScript using bubble loader, etc. So it's just a code transformation tool, and it takes some sources and it outputs into some destination folder. And while it is doing it, it can also optimize the code. It can do many transformation with those codes. It can plug in extensions. It can do multiple things. So let's talk a little bit about this source and destination folders, and then we will talk about the optimization. So we have in our ScandiPWA folders, we have this folder structure where we have src. Let's see it on the computer. Well, here we have in our folders, we have PWA, src, then we have application, configuration, and public. Well, and then also we have this Magento theme, as you might see. Well, this is important because, let's see, src, Magento theme, and also we have here config, let's say public, and let's say application. So what happens when you run the Webpack, which takes some sources and outputs into destination? It takes the application folder and all the JavaScript, the SCSS files out of it. So all the assets from all the static assets for your application. It takes the template for the HTML root. So this will be a root PHTML template of Magento. And it takes this file, it puts it here in the templates folder. So it has two folders inside, the templates, and I believe the web. So it takes the root PHTML, it takes the index.production or index.development and transforms it and renames it into root PHTML, and it places it places them in the templates folder. So then Magento can understand that, well, I have a theme which overrides my root template. Let's try it out. And it tries to load it and starts to work. And this is how we get Magento to understand us, ScandiPWA, as a theme. And this is done by Webpack because it takes the root PHTML, it transpiles it, and puts it here. And more specifically, it's done by Webpack plugin, HTML plugin. So if you will be working with HTML, you need to play around with the HTML plugin. So let's call this one HTML plugin work. Cool. So HTML plugin is doing this. But what happens with our styles? Our styles, our code, our JavaScript code, it needs to be also available for Magento to display. So what happens is it's also taken, it's processed through the Webpack, and then it appears here under the web. So here we'll have our bundle, we'll have our assets, we will have everything, and the Magento will be able to access it. And if we check this, well, let's switch back to the computer. If we check this in the Magento theme, we will have templates, which will have root PHTML, and this is principally the copy of index.html, index production PHTML. You can see they are very different, very similar, because they are pretty much the copy of one another. So root PHTML and index production is very similar. Additionally, it has the web folder, and you can see it has some scripts. But if the HTML was very similar, our styles are completely different. We cannot understand them. Why is it so? Well, this is because we had this bubble plugin, and the bubble plugin was parsing our code and transfiling it, but also we are optimizing it. And here comes the difference between production and development setup. Well, let's draw a little board here. So let's say we have the production setup, and we have development setup. So in production, what happens is that the code gets minified. Code is minified. So what that means is that if we switch back to our computer, the code we can see here is minified. It's a single line of code. You can see it. Well, very interesting. A single line of code. You can see single one. What else what else happens in production? Also in production, our code gets chunked into multiple chunks, 20 of them to be specific in current case. So it gets transformed into chunks. Why is this needed? Because this allows us to load our code when it's needed. So this is the code splitting. So the code is split, and then when we need it, when we need the file, we load it. When we don't need it, we don't load it. This allows us to have very efficient loading and very fast website. Okay, cool. What else happens in production? In production, we can see that we have this manifest, and this manifest is generated, and it allows us to install our application. But this is not the difference. It happens for both. So the manifest is the specific thing for PWA applications to be recognized and installed, but there is a pre-cache manifest, which is more interesting. Well, the pre-cache manifest is generated only in production, and what it allows us to do, let me switch to the board. What it allows us to do, it allows service worker pre-cache, which will download all the chunks by itself, so without you requesting them, and then when you request them, they will be immediately returned to you. So a service worker pre-cache to preload assets. And what it will also do, instead of just preloading, it will preload and cache them, so if you will go offline, all the application will be available to you, even though you haven't visited it. This is not related to the data. I'm speaking about just the application parts like my account, card, checkout. You will still be able to go through them. They will still be available. Very good. And now back to the differences. Additional thing which happens only in development is the source maps. So if we can see here, we see no source maps in the code, but if we open up the site, if it opens, I don't remember if I run it today. No, I haven't. But if we would open, we might have seen that our code, it is like referenced. So we can see the references where everything is located. So we can press and immediately see the source from where did our code go. And the source map are only available in development because they are the development tools. So this is the source maps. The source maps are available only there. But also a thing very crucial for the applications is that some logic might not be executed in development mode. Let's see an example. For example, in our case, if we go to the source, let's see, if we go to the source app and then open the main index.js file, main index.js file, we can see that some logic runs only in development. And this is the hot reload. So the hot reload happens only in development, and we're only listening for it in the development. So in development mode, we have the hot reload, and let's be more specific. This happens because we have different value of this specific variable, process env node env. This variable is different, and multiple parts of the application can be dependent to it, including the React, and the React will work and throw different errors depending on your current node env value. So this node env value is different, so the hot reload is not working because of it. The React might work different, so I hope you can see that the React might work different. Everything could be a little bit different if this variable is set. So additionally, what can happen is that we might have a different where you can see those differences more visually is by going to our documentation, and here you can see the configuration part where you can find out the differences between in the Webpack part, you can find out the differences between those configurations. And another big difference is highlighted here is the dev server. Well, the dev server is run only in development mode, which is logical. So here we also have the development server. And why is it important to run it? Well, because it allows us to have this hot reload, and this allows us to compile using the memory cache. So the files are cached and only changed files are regenerated. So this allows for quicker bundling. And this is why if you run npm run build, it takes so long. But if you run npm run watch, it takes long only once, and then it starts quickly loading. So dev server with cache. Very good. So development in development mode is much faster. Additional thing which is different is the entry files for HTML. I hope you can see this here, and we have some space, but in the production, index file is index.production.html, and in development it's index.development, and here phtml, and here development.html. So this differences is important because this is just two different files included in the application. And finally, there is a service worker build, which, as I already mentioned, has a difference in production where we have the pre-cache manifest here. Yeah, the service worker pre-cache, but the build itself is a little bit different because in production we are building in two steps. First, we are building the service worker, and then we are including the and then we are building the application. So here is two-step build, step build. And finally, the biggest change in terms of how you debug it, in development mode, no files are generated. No files are generated. So if you're browsing your folder structures, if you're running development mode, the Magento theme folder, which we have spoken a few minutes ago, will not appear because it caches in memory and it doesn't require to have real files generated, real folders. That's an important thing. Well, let's now switch to the files and see how those files work together and how you can and why there are so many of them. I will keep this for now. Let's switch back to our theme and let's open up the config folder. And let's try to understand by using our knowledge, which we obtained from the previous 3 drawings of this board, what we have inside of it. So let's see, there is a Webpack development config, okay, the Webpack production config, okay, so we assume this difference is what makes them different from each other, but there are also additional configurations like extract translations. Well, what this config does? Well, this config is meant to extract the internationalization strings from the application. Time to time, you're required to do it because then you will update your JSONs with translations, and then you could provide the translations for those files. So you can execute this Webpack config by running the following command: extract translations. And you can run npm commands by running npm run and then the name of the command: extract translations, build watch core, and whatever. So this is how you run the this is how you can run those configurations. You can see Webpack dev server is run, Webpack is run using different configurations, and this covers the Webpack extract translations. We also have this service worker config, which is a part of this two-step build for production. We also have this core config, which we'll talk later when we'll be talking about contribution. So this is the configuration for core contribution. And here we can also see the bubble configuration. We talked about the bubble loader. Well, this is the configuration for this file. The meta configuration, the configuration of meta tags, which to include. This is the HTML loader configuration, which includes those fields into our HTML document. The test configuration, not so important. So that's the configuration main difference. So in the end, let's talk about commands which are available. So the most valuable command is this npm run build, because this is what allows Magento, after you run this command, it allows you to understand for Magento to recognize a theme. So let's write a few I would say step-by-step guides what to run in what situation. Well, if you're using Docker, there is nothing for you to run, it automatically does its job. But if you are on your existing Magento instances, if you're running existing Magento instance and you want to install the theme, what you need to run first is npm. Oh, it's a bad color of the marker. Let's switch to the black one. First thing you need to run when you just installed is npm ci. It's a small I. So why the npm ci and not the npm I? npm I. Why not I? Why CI? Well, the biggest difference here is that we will be using the package-lock.json. So we'll be using the package lock when installing the node modules. And this will allow us to make sure that the versions of our dependencies are the same. So this is just a security measure, I would say, because this allows us not to break our application. If one of our dependencies releases a new broken minor version, we test on our versions, and if everything is correct, we keep them. So this is how we work in npm-ci and npm install. npm-ci is the first command you execute when you get your project, and then npm-i you execute when you want to install a new package. So here goes the package name. So npm-ci is the first command you run. The next command you run will be different depending on your needs. So if you are here to compile a theme and test if Magento is able to recognize it, you're running npm run build, and this will build a theme, and this will generate the Magento theme folder, and the Magento theme folder is a clear indication that the theme should be recognized. If you have this folder, and inside of this folder you have root, PHTML, and web folders, well, this clearly means that Magento should have recognized a theme. If it's not, and you can see this folder in your application, well, something could be very, very bad. You should check the tables of Magento and see if it's added your theme into the list. So the Magento theme, to generate this folder and to recognize for Magento to recognize the theme, you need to run npm run build. Important stuff, please notice. But if you are developing on your if you want to develop and if you don't have the Webpack containers, well, you can run following command, pm2 watch. So npm pm2 watch. So why this command? Well, this command is needed because this command, pm2 watch, npm run pm2 watch. So this command, what it will do, it will start the dev server, which will be restarted every time you create a new folder. Because by creating a new folder, you need to restart because of the in-memory cache. So if you're creating a new folder by which you want to override a specific component, you need to recompile. And the PM2, the process manager, it will handle this and it will restart the watching process. So this is how it goes. This is for development, and this will start you a server on a port 3303. This will start you a server on a port 303, I believe, but you can check this in our development configuration. Let's see, the port, yeah, the 303, this is a port it will run on, but notice that the Magento won't function properly because the request to /GraphQL might not be properly sent. So you might need to change the request URI constant in the util request. You can search for this in the source. You will find this request URI, and or a different approach would be to add an nginx config. You can add an nginx config, which you can also locate in the in our front-end containers configuration. So run pm2 watch for development and make sure you have either changed the request URI or you have added the nginx config, just like we did, or preferably develop in our Docker environment, because this will make your life much easier. Cool. And a different thing you might want to run time to time is the npm extract translations. npm run and extract translations. And this command, npm run extract translations, what it will do, it will go through your files, it will find all the template literals you added. Yes, notice inside, please don't put any non-static thing inside. It should be a simple string. Yeah, it should be a string. It can be, it should be a simple string. Don't put a variable inside. So it will find all of those functions, and it will take them and put into E18N, so internationalization folder, under the name of your file. Like if you have the English US.json, then it will append a new found strings into those files. So let's take a look at this folder. The folder E18N contains some languages for me, and it has it has languages inside, and some of them are null. So guys, if you know the language, Espanol, for example, or whatever language, feel free to contribute the translations. We would love to see them. Very good. So those are the main commands you need to run. Once again, the npm run extract translations for extraction of translations, the npm run pm2 watch in order to watch the files. This command, no need in Docker, This command, no need in Docker, but needed if you are installing on your local. So, and npm CI always when you pull the latest changes, because you want to make sure that the latest versions of the packages are installed. Very good. So thank you guys for watching this tutorial. Today we talked about the configuration of Webpack, the commands available for you when working with a front end, and about the differences between the production and development. See you guys in the next workshop. Bye.